What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. Completely unrelated from RPG horror stories, I was thinking of adding these little hats to my tail, but I feel like, well, you're never going to see my tail much often. I mean, I have to physically step back, move myself upwards, turn my ass around to the camera for y'all to even see my tail. There'd just be a lot of effort, you know? There's just a lot of... Since that is that, I just put them on little horns and on the head, because, of course. I could have put it on the nose, like a red-nosed reindeer kind of thing, like Rudolph, but I feel like that'd be a little bit too much. Anyway, without further ado, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. Bizarre tabletop interview experience. Thought I'd share a lighthearted horror story to break up some of the dregs. I'm going through LFG trying to find, you guessed it, a group to join as a player. Applied to one game and the DM reaches out on Discord to do a call. First question is pretty standard. Something like, describe your experience with TTRPGs. I give the usual spiel for that, and when I'm done, he goes, okay, thanks for that, but relax, this is an interview. Mildly taken aback, I intentionally know that this isn't exactly the definition of an interview, but just say, sure, sorry, I wanted to answer fully, but I'll keep it reined in. It did feel condescending, but fine, some people like short answers, I can adjust. The not interview proceeds with unsurprising questions. Does the time work for you? What's the role you usually fill in parties? What's your favorite class, etc.? And I'm trying to keep my answers short enough, but honest. Everything I say is met with, yeah, that's exactly how I feel, or yeah, exactly, I like that answer. Usually that's a good sign, right? No. It was a bit like having Matthew McConaughey on the call. A lot of metaphorical, alright. That's what more filler words than actual agreements. Pretty sure he might have been a bit Texan too. And the voice was very much in that McConaughey vein, where there was a slight drawl slur to them. Over and over again, everything I said was right, and he was in complete agreement. And I'm getting an increasing sense of, I don't think this will work without the constant without what's so clenched teeth inducing for me about how he's talking. He then abruptly says he's getting a call from work, needs to answer it, and then 10 seconds later goes, oh, sorry, that was the office. I'm an IT specialist for Border Patrol ICE. The intern just messed up the server. I need to go in. Ends the call, blocks me on Reddit, posts looking for players till a few hours later. Suffice to say, we're probably not a good fix for a table together. It was the weirdest 15 minutes experience of my life. Bizarre, mildly insulting, unintentionally hilarious. Still not sure if he was drunk, high, or just odd like that. Dude, if you're there, just say the vibes are off. It's okay. They were. If the vibes are off, don't tell us like, yeah, I like that answer. Yeah, I'm vibing with that. Yeah, I see. I completely agree with you. Don't tell them that. Just say like, huh, okay. And then continue with the interview. Just be honest about it. If it's an interview, treat it like an interview. Just let it be an interview or just a casual conversation. I don't know. At the end of the day, you're trying to look for a player for your game. So treat it like an interview. Just let it be what it be, an interview, and just conduct it regularly. You're trying to figure out if the time works, if the player is good for it. The fact they came up with a weird excuse just to try to get out of this interview and just end it abruptly is strange to me. And then blocked you. They could have just said like, listen, I appreciate you applying, but we're just not gonna be a good fit. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go look for another player. And they just go from there. What a weird interview. What if your interview, non-interview? I don't think I ever had like an interview, but I mean, I always like, you know, ask players, you know, new players and stuff, questions. If it's like a friend that I know that haven't ever played D&D, I'd ask them things like, are you interested in this kind of class? Are you interested in that kind of class? Do you want to do spell casting? Do you want to just not do spell casting? What do you want to do? This is how you do this. This is how you do that. These are the general rules of the game. You know, that sort of thing. Having a casual conversation. I never had to have like an interview. I'm sure I'm gonna have a moment where I need to like interview somebody. The people watching the video, in the comments, can you tell me about your weirdest experience of being interviewed / not interviewed for a D&D or any other TTRPG game? How did that go? I'm very curious about it. While you're writing that, I'll get to the next story for today. GM sets up a time travel centered campaign. Doesn't understand causality. So this is a rather recent story about 6 months ago, and one where I was a player for once. Game was a D20 Modern, a modern kind of urban fantasy take on Dungeons & Dragons 3E. It was being run on Start Playing by my friend who asked me to participate a bit of a plant. I didn't know anything ahead of time, but I wanted to make sure that there was at least one player in his group that wouldn't be, well, that guy. I really enjoyed playing Modern back in the day, so I accepted. Premise of the game had a lot of promise. Basically, it was the future, and everything was screwed. The environment was so tormented that only 20% of the globe was inhabitable year-round, oceans so acidic they were completely lifeless, societal collapse and instability rampant, the whole 9 yards. humanity basically has about 20 years before we were wiped out, and there are just about no hope of fixing things, and there wasn't even enough resource left for any meaningful effort to escape the planet having any real chance of success. Me and 4 others were playing people recruited to be sent back in time, 12 monkeys style, in order to avert the apocalyptic problems that led to the dead future. We make our guys level up to 3 and have a brief introductory conflict as we fight a group of Mad Max style raiders that are attacking the facility we were in. We beat them and then get sent back to year 2003 as the facility explodes. We have a list of objectives, things to do that will, at the very least, make the future better. The first one is to acquire the monetary resources to achieve the rest of our goals. We were left how to figure that out ourselves, and our dedicated, wisdom-focused hero had an idea. Dedicated hero, do we have access to historical records from before the collapse of civilization, like newspaper and things? Yes, that's something you guys would have been able to see. That would just be a simple non-academic database. Awesome. So in 2015 or so, there were these divers that found a wreck in the Gulf of Mexico from colonial days that was full of gold. If you get a boat, go there and collect it. There'll be plenty of money to work with. Listed the longitude and latitude in the article was reported in. We were stoked for the idea. It was a cool concept that made use of time travel premise, but then the GM killed it with a comment, "That's an interesting thought, but it won't be there." What? It won't be there because it hasn't been found yet. But the boat sunk in 1700s and has been sitting there for centuries. We're just finding it earlier. Yeah, but it hasn't been found yet, so it won't be there. What? It won't be there? If those sunk in 1700s? Where did it go? For a smoke break or something? Did it go to get milk until 2015? What? That doesn't make any sense in the slightest. I'm curious. I am morbidly curious. So what the DM, how the DM is going to explain this one? I'll spare you the 30 minutes spent trying to explain how time and causality works to him, but I will say that it involved graphs. What? Graphs? You need graphs to explain that something happened in the past can also continue happening in the past? Let's say, for example, I lost one of my Santa hats like a month ago, right? And I traveled back in time to find it 2 weeks before, prior to me finding it again. It would still be there. It just doesn't disappear from reality completely. It's not like it just spawns into existence. It's just like on cooldown or something. In the end, we accepted that he wouldn't allow us to do this, mostly because he had no planning around it, but he did sour things for a bit. Turned out his plan was for us to just rob a bank. He explained that since we are from the future, nothing of us in any sort of forensic system which would make us harder to catch. I was confused too. I advised the other players to go along with it though, hoping he had something in his back pocket to make things more interesting. Halfway through our half-baked heist, we got attacked by a group of other people with weapons similar to ours. Before we could independently realize, our GM blurted out they're from the future too, and looked really excited for that reveal. We shot him a bunch and got away with an armored car full of money, as well as the one guy we captured. We were able to find out from the guy that he was indeed from the future as well, but was part of a different group that wanted to shape the future for their own ends. When I was told this, I got excited. So this is the game, dealing with antagonistic time travelers that want to make the future worse and align to specific ends. I suddenly got why he wanted the heist to happen, so you can introduce the premise. The guy even told us that there were other groups from the future, like a cabal of scientists that wanted to introduce scientific advancement early regardless of their impact, and a dangerous group of doomsday cultists that want the end of the world even earlier. That's well and good and all. I get the GM is like coming up with crazy ideas and stuff, but then how about this? You guys as a party travel over to this boat that's sunk there in order to retrieve the treasure, and another group arrives there too, conveniently at the same time, trying to do a similar thing because they're working against you and they need the money for themselves. I'm not the smartest thing in the room, honestly. Like, the air conditioner system is more smarter than me. My ceiling fan is smarter than me, and yet I can come up with something simple like that. Like, I feel like this is the kind of DM that doesn't have a lot of creativity, or it has to have things done specifically how they want to, or else they crack under pressure, or under the inability to be flexible and improve. I was pretty hyped when we found this out. I immediately picture mad cultists trigger nuclear meltdowns and a Morrow scientist building future tech machines and mechs for us to fight, all while dodging modern-day authorities and investigations. Unfortunately, none of that happened. What could have been a really interesting setup for different investigation and effort turned into a revolving door of the exact same fight. I'm not exaggerating, it was the same fight for the next 3 battles. First time was us raiding a junkyard full of doomsday cultists that happened to carry the same weapons and act the same as the guys from the bank. Second fight was a forest compound that had the exact same layout as a junkyard. Third one was a warehouse that, you guessed it, has the exact same down to the beats of the fight. First time we had a fight, on the third round a group of guys jumped out of the door and joined the fight, The second time it happened again on the same turn. The third time around, I got to the door ahead of time and raided in action, hoping that I was wrong. Sure enough, door flung open and baddies spilled out. I lobbed a grenade and caught them all in it. That time the fight went a lot faster. I'm concerned and confused on why the DM has no flexibility. It's like they have creativity, just no flexibility. Why is that? Why do things need to be a specific way? Why does the layout of the room is the same? Why is the entire combat this? Why is it all the same? Why is there no flexibility and coming up with different alternate ways how the interaction could happen? Why would you want to do that? Unless the DM is literally stuck in this kind of moment where they literally physically cannot come up with anything else other than what they currently have going on and just repeat it at nauseum. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening here. Unless it's some sort of a big Shyamalan twist that basically like things are happening over and over again because they're stuck in a different time dilation loop or something. Who knows? Here's an abridged list of things that happen in no particular order. We floated the idea of telling someone in the current time about what we were doing to help facilitate moving around and doing things. Our GM told us that one of our goals was to not share what we were doing with locals. His justification was that he didn't want a bunch of NPCs to roleplay. Our charismatic hero asked if he could infiltrate one of the other groups from the future to gather intel or maybe turn some of them for our cause. GM told us that was simply impossible. No explanation, no justification, just impossible. I, the smart hero, asked if I could use my tech skills to make some future tech stuff for us to use. GM said he would think about it. After the session, he messaged me privately and asked me not to bring that up again. Again, probably lack of flexibility. Maybe they have creativity, but just like this lack of flexibility. Like players want to do a thing. No, you can't do that. Explanation? Not necessary. You can't do that anyway. Why? Why not, GM? Why not let your players do the things they're supposed to do? Charismatic hero could actually infiltrate. The smart hero could actually do some stuff. Like, why make this so difficult for your players? It's like they have to follow a script because, God forbid, to go off a script, suddenly things gonna go into meltdown mode. Like, seriously, just why? Why do this sort of thing to yourself? You do this to yourself. Being so inflexible, you need to practice flexibility and be able to adapt on the fly. As a DM, you're not gonna be able to always have things happen your way. You can plan for things to happen your way, but your players sometimes may come up with different ideas or different things they want to do on the fly. And you gotta have a little bit of flexibility. You gotta practice those flexibility creative muscles, you know? Because if you don't practice them, then suddenly player says, okay, instead of going to door A, I want to explore door B. What are you gonna do? Stop them, say it's impossible. Door is locked. There never was a door in the first place. Only one door goes in and you're forced to go in. Are you gonna railroad them to specific things that you want to do? Or do you want to have a proper game where everybody can engage with what's going on? Obviously, there's gonna be some railroading happening here and there, but these railroads right now are a little bit too stringent, my man. You gotta practice the flexibility. The whole thing only lasted 3 sessions. We kept a run for 1 and 2, but lost 2 guys by the 3rd session. After that, the Discord was reduced to just me and the GM. At that point, he straight up asked me what he was doing wrong, and I told him that there was nothing engaging about how he was running the game. There were no NPCs to roleplay with, no skill checks to be made. It was just a series of unconnected combat encounters with nondescript men with guns. He said that was the kind of game he wanted to play, so that's what he ran. He offered to try to draw up some more players, and I recommended just starting over with a new batch, coming at it fresh. He agreed. With a few weeks later, he asked me to play under him again. I declined. No idea what happened after that. I met up with him at a birthday party about a month ago, 5 months after the game concluded. I found out that apparently that wasn't even his game. It was his girlfriend's, and she had been running the game for 2 years. He'd borrowed one of her early notebooks and run from that. Notebooks aren't adventure modules though, so when there were gaps, he just didn't fill them, or filled them with a boring gunfight. It was an outstanding premise, one I still think about on occasion, but was completely wasted on a game master that didn't understand it or have any interest in engaging with it. I wish I'd been playing his girlfriend's game though. Couldn't even finish his own game, so he just copied whatever his girlfriend did for her game and used notes and just couldn't even improv. The guy needs to practice improvisation skills. As a DM, you need to sometimes improvise. Actually, you know what? Like 90% of my experience as a DM is improvisation. Like you can plan for stuff, but at the end of the day, my players are gonna do some crazy stuff that I didn't even think about, or they gotta pull out a magic item that they received in another game that Mary or Micah gave them, and suddenly have to just flexibly bend around and see what's going on and stuff. That's the fun of it. It's the fun of always being on your toes about these sort of things. If things don't go to plan, go with plan B, and then if they don't go plan B, plan C, and keep going from there, and just improvise your way. That's one of the fun things. That's one of the best things about games like this, dude. Improvisation and flexibility are very important skills for the DM to try to master and nail down. So I highly recommend for this DM, if they want to improve at all in the slightest as a DM, they need to practice flexibility in improvisations. Mostly improvisation, greatly improvisation. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.